Sounds,
Recording.
thanks very much. Okay, so hello, welcome to the 2025 Franklin Soil and Water program launch. I don't know exactly what we call it anymore, but we're going to be talking about three different programs tonight. Michaela, who's online, is going to talk about Community Beyond Backyards, and then I'll cover the other two programs, our mini grant program and our tree assistance program. So, Michaela, do you want to talk a little bit about you and what your position is here at Soil and Water?
Yeah, so I'm the outreach program coordinator here at Soil and Water, and you might know me behind the community backyards curtain. That's where most of my role is running that program. And you may also see me out at events.
All right. I'll jump ahead here and first off, just to let everyone know. So you can have there's a lot of different programs here. We ask that you can apply for these multiple programs, but they need to be for different projects. So we can only award a project. Like let's say you have a rain garden project. If you apply to two programs, we'd only be able to award you from one. We ask that you try to only apply for programs that are the best fit. So again, apply for multiple programs, but they have to be for different projects. And then if you're not sure what's the best fit for your project, let us know and we can talk you through that process. And then yeah, we're here to help. So unfortunately, we don't always get to fund everyone. That'd be great if we could. However, if you don't get funded, we can still provide technical assistance to you. That can be in a form of a lot of different things. So just ask, and we can be used as a resource to help hone your applications and projects. And then with that, I'll give it over to Michaela.
Thanks. So first we'll talk about the Community Beyond Backyards grant program. This is a newly kind of expanded, revamped program for us. If you might have heard of it the last 2 years called Columbus Business Rebates, but now it's not just in Columbus. So that's why we renamed it. Next slide, please. So the objective of this grant is to promote and implement green infrastructure projects, specifically on land that's owned or managed by businesses and nonprofit organizations. So as we're becoming a more rapidly developed area, we're having a lot more businesses and organizations making land use decisions, and we kind of want to incentivize them to install green infrastructure. And this grant is up to $2,500 per project. Um, and it's I'll get into it in the next slide, but here's a picture here from a project from this past year at Salem Elementary School, which is in the north side of Columbus. Um, and they did a rain garden and some tree plantings at their elementary school. And this is the rain garden freshly in action right after they planted it. Next slide, please. So, newly expanded. So we have them available in several different communities now. And then the number is listed there for how many we have available in each community. We do have one available anywhere in the county, regardless of the municipality. That one will probably be a little bit more competitive. Just a warning, but we do have 12 available in Columbus. We also have uh, spots available in Bexley, Dublin, Grove City, Westerville, and Worthington. Next slide, please. So, green infrastructure, if you're not super familiar with what that is, that could be rain gardens and bioswales, native plants and trees. If you want to do a native plant garden, some tree plantings, that's eligible as well. Rain garden collection, so rain barrels, rainwater cisterns, anything that captures rainwater for reuse. Permeable pavers is another one, and any other kind of green infrastructure. If it's improving a stormwater system or a wetland, that's also eligible as well. But the main focus is going to be on those rain gardens, native plants, rainwater collection, and permeable pavers. And just to note here that if you want to do a little bit of a mix of these, that's perfectly fine. So if you want to do a rain garden with a native plant garden, throw in a rain barrel, that's perfectly fine. You can kind of mix and match these up to that $2,500 amount. Next slide, please. Perfect. So here's a project that I wanted to highlight. This was done in the Clintonville area at a daycare center called Balance Family Academy. It's right on North High Street, near Walhalla Ravine. and they used the grant money this past year to basically restore their native plant garden. It had become overrun with thistle, so they used the money to take out that thistle and replant with new natives and also add a few trees around the property. And they got a few signs as well, like this one pictured here. And in the future, they plan to use this space and these signs as like programs and take the kids outside during the school day and stuff like that to teach the kids about native plants and pollinators. So really nice project. So requirements for this grant. So it's open to businesses. It's also open to nonprofits. You just have to be a legitimate business or organization, basically. And we'll check that by making sure you're registered and current with the Secretary of State. And we also require you to provide an IRS W-9 form, which is pretty easy to do, but it's something that we have to have on file for all of our grants. And then, oh, I forgot to update this slide. So the project has to be located within one of those municipalities or the one anywhere in Franklin County is open to whoever. And then reimbursement basis only. That's the preferred method. If you have some kind of hardship and maybe need some direct invoicing where we pay for it instead of, going through you. If there's any kind of financial like problem like that, just let me know and we can try to work something out. But reimbursement basis is just preferred. And then there are a few things that are not eligible, which is pretty standard across our different grant programs. And that includes sales tax because we're tax exempt. Research costs, not eligible. Any salaries or administrative fees, those are not eligible. Food or gifts, invasive or non-native plants or annual plants. And educational signage is reimbursable up until 20% of the total amount. So if it's more than 20%, we won't reimburse whatever that amount is. Just up to 20% of the total grant cost will reimburse for signage. And then new for this year, contractor fees are now eligible. So we understand that making sure that the work is done right and by knowledgeable people, or maybe you just don't have the time to do it, we've added contractor fees as eligible. You just have to demonstrate that the contractor work was clearly for the grant project, hiring out a landscaper to plant these trees or something like that. It just has to be clearly for the grant project and it has to be through like a legitimate business and you have to provide receipts and that sort of thing. But that's new and now eligible, which is exciting. So the application process, you just apply online. It'll be on our Community Backyards website. The link will be there. Just fill out the form with all of your information, and it will be open February 1 through February 28th. And then we'll have decisions made and awardees notified by March 15th. And then if you're selected, we'll have to do like a site visit and get a signed award agreement, and then your project can start. And then we want projects wrapped up by November 15th of this year. And that's about it for the program. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask now or shoot me an email. I'm happy to help. And I saw we had a question in the chat if Upper Arlington is eligible for that one. Not currently. However, we have not finished our working agreement with Upper Arlington for this year. So that one might be coming later this year, but don't quote me on that because I don't know for sure. Yep, so the list is there. Columbus, Bexley, Dublin, Grove City, Westerville, Worthington, and then one anywhere in the county. So even if you're in Upper Arlington, not sure if we'll have a spot for Upper Arlington specifically, but you could apply for that anywhere in the county spot.
All right, cool. Any other questions online or in person? All set? Okay. Well, let's jump into the next presentation. That's going to be me. It's talking about the conservation mini grant. So the mini grant program is something sort of totally in-house with Franklin Soil and Water. We've had it running for now 11 years. Every year we try to competitively award 3 organizations up to $2,000. And we're looking at, on the ground conservation projects, and that has a very wide definition. This grant is awarded on a reimbursement basis. So upfront costs are paid for by the nonprofit, the 501c, and then, once you turn all your receipts and documentation to us, we give you a check back. Over those 11 years, 35 different organizations have received mini grants. It's really well distributed across the county. And it is funded by our conservation fund. So we get that from donations, from tree and plant sale, from ticket sales for our annual meeting, that kind of thing. And the projects must be completed by the end of 2025. So who can apply? Like I said, 501c groups, various nonprofits, schools, watershed groups, municipalities, that kind of thing. It can even be an HOA, governing body, civic associations. And if you don't have one of those statuses, but you have a relationship with a group that does and would be eligible, they could serve as a fiscal sponsor if you needed to. Requirement: project must be located somewhere in the county. Example projects. So like I said, on the ground conservation, sort of serving the soil and water district's mission. It's a very broad topic. So that's everything from rainwater harvesting, rain gardens, those green infrastructure that Michaela mentioned, invasive species removal, stormwater improvements, best management practices for stuff like that, and other things. So it's really a broad topic. And like I said, you kind of start to see that there's a lot of overlap in some of the scope of these grant projects. So that maybe talking to us might help figure out which one's the best for your project itself. Award criteria. So we have 5 different criteria that we're looking at at the applications. One, environmental impact. How does this project affect the environment downstream, upstream, local area? Its connection to our mission. Visibility, we'd like these projects to sort of be demonstrative, to be out in the community. Cost efficiency, what's the budget looking like? Is there better ways to do things? And then if it's in an underserved community, we do try to bias some toward that, so we do weight that slightly higher. And there's a lot of different criteria for underserved community. You'll see that in the applications and that sort of thing. So potential pitfalls. So like I said, we have, for this program, you have to be a sort of legitimate group, 501c or that sort of thing to qualify, just because we can't pay individuals. So only organizations. Oftentimes with groups, you might have a few people in the HOA or the watershed group, they'll make some of the purchases, and then, those receipts get turned into us. We can't pay the people that made the purchase, but we can pay the group. And so then the group has to have that arrangement to make sure they can get money back to their the members or whoever who paid those things. And so again, if you're applying, make sure you have that representation that you're authorized to do so. And again, the group is going to be the payee for that reimbursement check. The property is not owned by the applicant. Ensure that all permissions are in place and documented prior to applying. And then, kind of like Michaela talked about, those sort of same purchases that are not going to be eligible, sales tax, those kinds of things. Our website has a full list of those items. Same application window as the Beyond Backyards program. So it's going to open online February 1st on the website, go through February 28th. If you do need a physical version, I can get one of those for you. Just call the office. Timeline. So again, that February application window, get them reviewed and voted on for the first week of March, get that mid-March award status notification, and then we'd work with the awardees to sort of do the contracts and orientation, sort of just going over the process and the nuance of the documentation. And then we try to have those projects be able to start in March at the very end. Clarification, that's that same notice I had at the very top of the presentation, where talking about, again, apply to only be awarded from one program per project. That's pretty much it. Is there any questions on that? We can talk a little bit more in depth.
I have a question. How do you determine underserved community?
Yeah, so it's a really open-ended question, right? And on the application, there's, we have some different categories listed that we kind of borrowed from City of Columbus. So it's things like I think here, less than 20% tree canopy coverage is often thought of as an underserved thing. There are historic maps. There are Celebrate One neighborhoods, which is a designation City of Columbus has. So there's a bunch of those resources, but it's a very broad definition. And so it's hard to kind of nail down exactly, but there's a lot of different ways to go at it. I'm trying to think if I don't think I have a slide later that has some of the definitions, but on our website and on the application, you'll see a bunch of different examples of kind of those things. And then if you do some research, you might find you do qualify for or under one of those categories or whatever.
Then Kay asks,
Yes.
we are an HOA on the banks of Alum Creek. We have stormwater issues that are causing erosion to our common areas. Is this the type of situation that would qualify for a grant?
Yeah, I think so. You know, you'd be kind of looking at it from that perspective of obviously the erosion is not a problem, but you know, the sediment getting in the stream and that sort of thing. So arresting that situation would be beneficial for the water quality. And he said along the alum, Michaela, would that also be something that could potentially be under the Beyond Backyards program?
Yeah, if you're doing tree planting or perennial planting, sorry, I can't find my words tonight. Any of that would qualify too. But might be a better fit for conservation mini grants.
Yeah,
just
so.
first.
It's a little
first
broader. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so you know there's a lot of ways to tackle that. You know, Michaela mentioned the tree plantings, live stake plantings is often something we see implemented on eroding banks and stuff, and it does depend. So, you know, my information's on there, email and phone. Please reach out. We can kind of discuss a little bit further and kind of find what's the best fit for you. But yeah, generally, yeah, trying to tackle some erosion problems and that sort of thing with stormwater infrastructure would qualify for sure.
We've also worked with an HOA before.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Like I said, it's kind of similar. We'll just need the documentation, W-9, that kind of thing.
Has the program ever granted funds to clean waterways and ponds?
Yeah. So in the past, I'm trying to think. So I've been with the program now 4 years. And so I try in those 4 years, I don't think there was stuff, but in his previous years, there's been stuff related to stormwater infrastructure and issues with ponds and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think this, you know, your guys' project has been historically something that's come up. It used to actually be really infrastructure focused. We used to have municipalities apply a lot to these kind of things to get some extra cash for these demo sort of projects. But in the last, I'd say 5 years, it's kind of shifted more towards, you know, the plantings and those kind of things. So there is definitely still a part of that that would fit under the umbrella there. All right. Anything else, or are we set? Cool. Well, let's move on to our sort of third part here, and that's the Columbus Tree Assistance Program. So Columbus Tree Assistance Program is jointly sponsored. Well, the funding comes from City of Columbus Recreation and Parks Department to get private tree canopy growth in the city. This is the second year of the program. And we've made some tweaks to it. So I don't know who's online, but if anyone was in it last year, we did sort of make some changes. So the award amount is increased. It's kind of a range now. So we're going to competitively award $2,000, $10,000 per group to carry out these tree plantings on private property in the city of Columbus. Overall, we have $20,000 total that will be dispersed amongst those groups, up to 5 groups. And this one's a little different. So this one, with it kind of being less organization focused, more private tree canopy and private landowner focused, it is going to be direct invoicing. So in this case, if you're an awardee, we'd work with you directly to buy the materials and trees and make sure they get there when you need them for your tree planting. Like I said, because we have this open to just kind of landowners, it doesn't have to be an organization. We understand that, you know, putting up $2,000 to $4,000 or something like that for bald and burlap trees can be a pretty significant burden. Again, the goal is to grow that native tree canopy in Columbus on private property. And this year, we're actually going to be partnering with Green Columbus. So Green Columbus is a nonprofit that does a ton of great work across the city and does I think they've done, I mean, I can't remember the exact number. I know it was like hundreds of thousands of trees over the years. And we're going to partner with them for their expertise and relationship. And I think that they'll be a great partner this year. And we'll talk a little bit more about how they're going to work with us here. And again, we've made another shift. The plantings are shifted to only happen in the fall. So that kind of takes some pressure off of that first summer maintenance period and the watering. This past summer, we had one of the worst droughts in 100 years. That kind of pressure is very intense on new plantings. And so to try to reduce that first year maintenance concern, we worked with Rec and Parks. They have their tree manual, which is all linked on the website. And it kind of goes over all the nuances of planting trees. And we're using their fall planting window, which I think is September 1st to the 15th, or 15th to the September 15th to December 31st. And that just makes it a little easier. The trees are still dormant, that kind of thing. So we're biasing towards that fall planting. This is just from last year, quick little map. Last year we awarded about $10,000, planted 101 native trees, and we're talking larger trees, not just bare root saplings. We're talking 5-gallon up to ball and burlap trees, so pretty big. We had 4 organizations participate, and we had 5 projects. So 2 down here with Franklinton area neighbors. Village at Willowbrook was an HOA. Final Third is sort of a nonprofit soccer-based education group. And then Charles School is a charter school there with a partnership with Ohio Dominican. And so pretty good for the first year, good distribution. Who can apply? So like I said, it's a little bit more broad. You can be a homeowner association, neighborhood association, all these sorts of things. But again, even that informal organization, right? Or a business or private landowner. There will be some paperwork you got to get together and sort of, say, hey, we're these 3 or 4 neighbors. We all have understanding of this project. We'll talk a little bit more about it, but there is some more paperwork with those things, but it's not impossible. Oftentimes you have to have some sort of status with the state in order to apply for these things. It's a little different with this one. And again, has to be located within City of Columbus. Process timeline. So the other 2 programs we talked about tonight have a February application window. This one's a little bit longer because we are trying to, again, extend that window out to target the fall planting. We have a lot of different groups. If you have done a tree planting before, it might not be that difficult to do an application, but if you've never done a tree planting, it's a lot to learn. We have a lot of resources. So we want to give people a big window to get these applications in. So this one will close, open in Feb 1 and close March 31. So a 2-month window. We will review and vote on stuff by mid-March. Then that's wrong. That should be April. Mid-April, end of April for the notification. And then over the summer, Green Columbus will sit down with you, their professional arborist, and refine the plan a little bit, see if there's some extra things to do. And then we'll work with you to order the materials in the summer and then have everything ready in fall 2025 and get stuff planted started September 15th through December 31st. So, like I said, this is a little bit more complicated. The application stuff and some of the templates we'll talk about, but it's really similar. We'll have an online application for you to walk through, a group status letter, right? If you just kind of saying what you are, 501c3, if you're an informal group. We have these participation letters, to authorize people to have the plantings on their property and saying, yes, I know I'm part of this. Our neighborhood wants to apply for this, and yada, yada, yada. Budget template. We ask you to submit a planting plan sketch. Then I just have this example tree list we'll look at. This is all on our website. So again, here's the last year's application, just a quick look at kind of the front landing page. Again, we can make this available to you in a physical form. You just gotta let me know. Group status letter, we have a form letter here for you, just saying, hey, on behalf of whatever your group is, I'm the authorized person applying. Here's who's all participating, and we all understand this, private tree canopy growth, etc. Then if you are a landowner, you also say, hey, yep, I know they're going to do this at my property. Some things to think about. So we often hear the term kind of right tree, right place. So in an urban environment, you can't necessarily put a really big tulip poplar in every 7x7 tree well, as much as I'd love that. So, thinking about the tree size and species will be important. Generally, we're trying to bias towards larger canopy coverage. So trees with bigger crowns. Again, urban environment, you got to be mindful of utilities and buildings and foundations. So it will, we do take that into consideration. And like I mentioned about utilities, make sure you're using 811 OUPS, the Ohio Utility Protection Service, also known as Call Before You Dig. See all those commercials for it. You can have them come out and mark utilities at your property. Note that it isn't all utilities, it's only the groups that are participating with OOPS. As someone who before this did construction and consulting work and watched a driller hit a water line that wasn't marked, and that was a bad day for me. You can trust this pretty far, but you gotta pay attention. Overhead utilities, we have some guidance on our website too about how far away from overhead lines you need to be for plantings. AEP had some really good documents on that. So again, check out our website and ask us questions. Here's sort of an example of the budget we have, a template, again, native trees, delivery fees, maintenance or planting materials, and sort of stuff, just something like this, pretty basic. Here's an example of one, right? It's like some species here, delivery fees, hardwood mulch, that stuff. So pretty basic. You'll need a lot of detail at the very beginning. And then we also ask in the application that you give us a sort of a simple sketch of a planting plan, right? It doesn't have to be like to scale or anything like this, but if you just, gotta take a screenshot on Google Maps or something, or just sketch something out like this, just kind of gives us an idea of where things are and just shows that you're thinking about those utilities and your property and your distances. Try to highlight those locations of utilities if you know them, or use OOPS to come out and mark them. And then if your project is selected, we'll actually work with the Green Columbus arborist, Julie Smiley, to help refine that plan and take a look at it and make sure everything looks good. Here's an example tree list that's also on the website. So it has them broken down by size. Again, we'd love to see a lot of these larger species out there, just the longer life to them, most of them, and then they have really nice canopy coverage. But sometimes it might just be you can only get a couple service berries or red buds out of your property. So that's great too, because those small trees offer a lot of benefit. Restricted species. So again, this is for native tree canopy growth. We bias towards that because they are the most adapted to our environment. They tend to do the best, and they offer the most, not only in ways of surviving droughts and those kind of things once they're well established, they also offer a lot of ecological benefit too, so that's very helpful. And we also don't want to have a calorie pair situation in this miracle tree that ended up escaping cultivation. So that, no non-native or invasive species. And then also, again, tree canopy, the screening species like arborvitae or white cedar or eastern red cedar, they don't really have a ton of crown width to them, so they don't do a lot for the canopy. So we don't want to see those. Award criteria, kind of again really similar to the mini grant. 5 different criteria: sort of the planting plan efficacy, how well that's put together, the impact on the canopy, impact on the community, what the future maintenance plan looks like, and how that's thought out. Then again, that sort of underserved community aspect, if you are in one, we will, I think these are all 1 through 5, and we weight that one a little bit more. Eligible expenses. So again, with it being directly invoiced, it's no money out of pocket for the applicants and awardees. And the things we can pay for are native trees. We're looking at 5 to 15 gallon in size, approximately 4 to 6 foot tall. That's about the max size you can dig a hole with volunteers before you start needing equipment. Delivery fees for the trees. Oftentimes, there is a cost associated with getting them. Maintenance items or planting items, as long as it's less than 20% of that total funding request. And then if you have something that's not listed here, but you need it, if you let us know, we can work with you. This year, we do also have sort of preferred vendors. This isn't a requirement. You don't have to use them. We'll get to that in a second. But these are just vendors that we've worked with, we know, and they can provide us the things we need to meet our auditing and invoicing requirements. And that list is going to be added onto the website. So we have 5 different tree vendors here: Riverside, Natives, Scioto Gardens, Willoway, Acorn. All 4 of those are local: Delaware, Then Willoway is in Hilliard, Acorn Farms is Westerville. Davies Nursery is up in Worcester, but they deliver down here. Then for mulch, you got a couple different options: Ohio Mulch, Oakland Nursery, or Kurtz Bros. And then for maintenance planting supplies, these are not local; they will ship. But forestry suppliers, AM Leonard and Granger all offer a lot of the materials we need. You know, mulch, or not mulch, but tree bags or tree watering diapers, those kind of things, stakes, arbor tie, those kind of things are all available for them. I don't mention tools or anything here. You can get tools from a couple different organizations in City Columbus. For example, Keep Columbus Beautiful does free tool lending on their website. So there's like places to get these sorts of things, tools anyway. You don't need to buy them. If you do have a vendor you really want to work with, that's great. We can work with you to do that. Again, these are not required to be vendors. We just know these ones work. If you do have a vendor that's outside of that list, they just got to meet a few things because of us being a state entity. We can only pay for things certain ways. So the vendor has to be able to do traditional invoicing. They can't really do credit cards or checks. They have to be in good standing with the IRS and must be able to produce that W-9 form that we talked about a few times. Just a legitimate business kind of thing. Talking a little bit more about that change with Green Columbus. So Green Columbus is going to be able to provide some support to the awardees. That partnership is new this year. Again, touched on this a little bit, that planting plan refinement and review. They'll help you with that. And the day of, we'll actually be able to have Julie out on site to help plants, kind of demonstrate the planting and make sure things are going. And then also if there's last minute adjustments and you get out there and there's a big utility line running right through where you expected, it's marked, you're like, I gotta move all my trees now. And then also help with volunteer promotion via their Give Pulse network. Green Columbus hosts, I think, the largest Earth Day mobilization in the country. And so kind of leveraging their website and their volunteer base to make sure that there's enough people showing up to these events. Speaking of which, I mentioned here, volunteer no-shows is a potential pitfall. So we're gonna try to correct that a little bit, making sure that there is it's better to have more than enough people than not show up to these things. You know, many hands makes light work, or whatever the phrase is. Again, make sure you have permission from all the residents and that sort of thing. That's really important. Another thing to think about is making sure you get the holes dug. It's like, I always forget about that part, but getting the holes dug is probably the most difficult part of a tree planting. Again, make sure to use 811, call before you dig. And then urban soils, right? We're dealing in a very disturbed environment and they often can surprise you. So I've been out at tree plantings where it's great, organic, nice soil. Shovel sinks right through it. Then other times you're hitting a rock or a cinder block every time you dig. So just think about that stuff. And then again, those purchases that are not eligible, same ones as the other programs. And again, the website has the full list. Again, just reiterating that application window for this one is open for 2 months. The application will be on our website starting Saturday. And let us know if you need a physical version. That's the tree assistance program. So tweaks made to it this year. Are there any questions? All good.
Curious as to the preferred tree that maybe these parks and recs is planting, like along St. Clair that planted.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm not sure what they plan. So this Parks and Rec does use a more broad tree list than we do. So with this project specifically, they wanted native plants, but oftentimes in their right-of-way plantings, those trees right along the street, they do a mix of native and non-native. So try to think of some of the species they use. They might have a list available on their website, but yeah, so oftentimes those environments are a little harsher, and you also have more utilities and can't really have the trees out in the road. So they have to they're really, really confined by what species they can use there. That's why I think they're excited about these kind of projects, because you can get more of those native species that have the bigger crowns. In a right-of-way tree situation, you're looking at a lot of chemical exposure, a lot of salt exposure, have to be pretty upright form. They have to, tolerate that that poor soil that's oftentimes right there at the edge of the road grade, and usually getting a lot of heat bouncing off the road from it. I can't remember. There's a couple species that they go to.
According to their website, the 5 most common street trees are red maple, Calvary pear, honey locust, sugar maple, and freak.
Yeah, and I think that's based on their inventory they just completed. They spend a lot of time making sure that every tree on public property is cataloged. But their species list is changing. They do also have their own nursery, and so that's where a lot of their trees come from over on the east side.
Well, I would think that in their effort to create uniformity, it'd be the same type of tree along a specific right
Generally I think that is the case, but
It's canopy eventually.
right, exactly, and I think that generally that is the case. They kind of pick a tree for a site, but then between segments they might vary it up. Is my understanding. Yeah. I don't envy them. I've seen that map of every tree. It's got data. They know how the diameter of it. Man, must take a long time, but
It's a great system to plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
It's nice, these kind of projects, seeing investment in tree canopy and their efforts to catalog all their stuff. It's we're starting to treat trees like a utility or a big boon, really a resource, and that's great in a lot of ways. Any other questions? Infrastructure, that's right, yeah. Anything else online?
Nope.
Okay. Well, that was faster than I thought. Usually goes that way, the first one. Obviously we'll stick around and answer any other questions and hang out. We did say until 8, so if we do have any stragglers come in at 7:55, I'll still be here. But yeah, thanks everyone. And if you have any more questions, email us. Oh, let me get my card.
I grabbed one.
Oh, yes, great. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us online in person. And that pretty much concludes what we have for you today. All right.
And I did record this and I'll post it on YouTube tonight, so it should be live like tomorrow morning if anybody wants to watch anything back or share it with anybody else.
Great. Thank you, Michaela.
Yep.
I had some more questions about the underserved. Is there anywhere that you can recommend I go look, like on the city?
Yeah. Let me see if I think here.
Kayla had a great comment about that in the actual chat.
Oh yeah.
So the underserved community or potential underserved communities include City of Columbus celebrating about neighborhoods, opportunity zones, and areas that feature less than 20% tree canopy coverage.
Maybe turn that.
So oftentimes we'll have a map by a zip code or something. So what I'll do, Mark, I can send you a link to a couple of those.
Okay.
That's what. I think. Hey, Michaela, does everyone in the chat, do we get their email addresses? Because if I put together this sort of resource, I'd like to send it to everyone online.
Yeah. So everybody, did we do registration for the Zoom? I can't remember.
I don't know. Actually, I can't remember.
Okay, I can't remember. I'm probably the one who set it up too. Oh geez. But if you guys want the resources afterwards, if you could drop your emails in the chat, that way I have them just in case I don't have them in our Zoom account, that would be awesome. And then we can email you guys the resources afterwards.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Good work.
Thank you. Appreciate that. In a lot of ways, it's good. We're staying really busy. In other ways, we're staying really busy. Shouldn't get a lot of work to do.
Nice to meet you. Yeah.
And if you guys want to, this is the feedback on so now that's yeah, this is great. This is like a great class to take it online or in person. And flexible is way there. It's so tree plant stuff.
We plant some live stakes before, for erosion.
Yeah, that's great.
Growing.
Oh, yeah. Life is weird to install first time I saw it.
That's gonna work.
Yeah, it is, it's what it is.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Thanks very much.
Come see us on the lake.
Yeah, we'll try to.